What's up, YouTube? And hi, welcome to the channel. My name is JujuGU, and today we'll be going over all of the new magic cards in the new Gods Unchained expansion, Mortal Judgment. So, magic is in an interesting spot right now in terms of metagame. They just got nerfed because of Jalamar, but it's still a top contender in the meta. Aether Fox, Static Aether Bugs, Aether Snaps, Archimea, all cards are contributing to Magic's success, and we should expect Magic to be a top contender even after Mortal Judgment is released. I'm personally excited to see what the new cards bring. These are going to be my first impressions, and I'll be doing the best analysis I can to get you a gauge of how strong these cards are, right? So take everything with a grain of salt, though, because like any other content creator that does a set review, they can get some things wrong. I am no exception. So feel free to, play these cards out on the PTR, really get a taste of their power level, and do your own research, just like any other thing we do here on the channel, right? So that being said, let's hop into our common cards for the set. Excuse me. So first up, we have Academy Apprentice. This is a 1-mana 1/1 Mystic with Echo, Spell Boost +1. I saw that the Echo card also offers Spell Boost +1, so that's pretty interesting. It's a Mystic, so there's some Fumentari Researcher shenanigans that can go on with this card, especially since it's 1 mana. So that's always interesting to see. Overall, I think it's a decent card. It's definitely something worth testing in Mystic Magic decks that revolve around Fumentari Researcher. So yeah, keep an eye out for this card. Next up, we have Surpassing Blast. This is our 1-mana spell. Deal 2 damage, empower 3, deal 4 damage instead. Okay, so that's nice. It's a 1-mana deal 2 damage. You can deal it to face, deal it to a creature, and then for 4 additional mana, or 3 additional mana, you can deal 4 damage instead, which is weaker than a Worm Breath. But I guess you're playing the card for the flexibility, which I get. But yeah, interesting 1-mana spell. Definitely something to splash, I think. It can be an alternative to Ancient Text or Form of Power, so it's a budget Ancient Text, in my opinion. Cool. Next up, we have Augur Optimist. This is a 2-mana 3/1 Mystic, Echo 4C1. Stats are pretty undervalued. Honestly, it's a 2-mana 3/1. 3 attack is good, but 1 health is bad. I hope the Echo card does something other than offer a 4C effect, but if it does offer just another 4C effect, then I don't see this card seeing play, really. Unless you want to play Mystic Fumentari Researcher, which is, honestly, it could be a possibility with the amount of Mystics that the class runs already. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't think I'd run this card. Cool. Next up, we have Theoretical Thaumaturge. This is a 2-mana 1/1 Mystic. Hey, Echo, Afterlife. Deal 3 damage to the enemy creature with the most health. Ties decided randomly. Okay, cool. So this is another 2-mana Mystic, Echo, that probably summons another Mystic and deals a similar effect maybe. I'm not too sure. But honestly, I think it's okay. It's definitely a card to play when... It's an anti-aggro card, pretty much, right? It's a form of removal. A thing you can do with this card is you can play this card, and if you have enough mana remaining, you can use your God Power to ping it and deal 3 damage to a creature of your the highest health. So could be a thing. Honestly, though, I'm not too sure. But yeah, it's definitely something to consider during with all the Mystic synergy going on. Cool. Next up, we have Haunted Armor. So this is a 2-mana 3/3 structure with frontline can't attack. The cards where I think this synergizes with is obviously the structure cards, so Aggravated Architect, so on and so forth. The good thing is it has frontline, so it's a pretty good anti-aggro card. If you're running like a deck that needs to stall to get to a certain mana point, this is a decent option in my opinion. Cool. Next up is Reject Dogma. Okay, this is a 1-mana spell, and we know how we feel about 1-mana spells. Draw a card. Oh, that's it. There we go. I'm just kidding. Draw a card, empower one, deal 4 damage, and obliterate a spell in your hand. Okay, so for an additional 1 mana, you get a 2 mana spell that is deal 4 damage. So you can deal 4 damage to anything, and then you can obliterate a spell in your hand. Okay. I think this card is good. It's going to see play in Miracle Magic for sure. I mean, you play this card when an Archimea is on the field, and you basically just get a free draw, right? And on top of that, like if you want to deal damage, it's a great way to deal damage at the cost of a spell in your hand. But yeah, I think it's a very, very good option. Is it broken? I don't think it's broken, but it definitely gives Miracle Magic another way to draw cards. Cool. Next up, we have Frenetic Bibliomaniac. Oh, wow. Frenetic Bibliomaniac is a 3-mana 1/1 Mystic. Echo, draw a card. Okay, so replaces itself, which is nice. Also gives you an Echo. Hopefully the Echo creature is a Mystic, and then you can draw a card again. 3-mana 1/1 obviously isn't a good stat line. Hopefully the Echo card is good and makes up for it, but honestly it's pretty underwhelming as a card. Cool. Next up we have Stoic Shield Ward as I check my volume. Cool. Awesome. Stoic Shield Ward, 4 mana 4/4 Mystic. Echo, give backline to a friendly creature. Oh, that's interesting. And then it's a Mystic, so hopefully the Echo card does something similar, I guess. I'm not too sure. But anyways, so I like the card. There's some synergy here, but 4 mana 4/4 is definitely like understated. But I mean, something that like first came to mind when I looked at this card was, hey, if you have a Frumentary Researcher on board, you can play this card and give that Frumentary Researcher backline and make it harder to kill, which is definitely something to consider if we're trying to push this like Mystic Frumentary Researcher magic deck thing, right? So that's something interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the other Echo effect does, but it's probably something similar. I think this card is decent. Next up, we have Austere Sophist. This is a 5 mana 5/4 Mystic. Echo, summon a 1/1 rat. Okay, so it's a 5 mana 6/5 that gives you a card to play afterwards, which is nice. It's understated as a 5 mana though, in my opinion. I mean, 5 mana 6/5 is decent, but I'd rather have a 5 mana 5/6. In terms of if I would play this card, probably not. Okay, moving on. Scuttler Sentry is a 1 mana 1/1 Atlantean. Afterlife, deal 1 damage to 2 random enemy creatures. Okay, cool. So it's a 1 mana 1/1 that deals 2 damage to 1 damage to 2 random enemy creatures. I mean, it's decent, but the 1 mana 1/1 kind of hurts it. I know it's an Afterlife effect that can be good, but I mean, if I draw this late game, I'm going to be so sad. So I don't know. Doesn't like tickle my fancy as much, you know? Cool. So next up we have Aetheric Repulsor. This is a 2 mana 3/1 with Ward, Aether. We already have Magic Carpet or Flying Carpet or whatever that card is, and it's 1 mana with Ward, and you can pick one. It can either be a 4C one or a Ward, so I don't know if I'd play this other than like inside of Aether decks, maybe. But 2 mana 3/1 is a weak stat line, even with the Ward. Cool. Next up we have Ash Reader. This is a 7 mana 7/6 Mystic. Roar, create a copy of an Empower card in your void and add it to your hand. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so some Empower support coming in for Magic. That's pretty nice. It's just too slow. 7 mana, 7/6. I don't think I'd play this at this price point, really. But I mean, to each his own. Maybe it'll find a deck where it can work. Cool. Next up we have our rares. Wow, we're getting to our rares fast. So first up we have Bold Scholar. This is a 3 mana 3/1 Mystic with Echo, Frontline, and Spell Boost 1. Wow, that's not bad. Maybe its Echo card does something similar. I'm not too sure. 3 mana 3/1 is pretty underwhelming though as a stat line, especially for 3 mana. Spell boost is okay, frontline is okay, but frontline doesn't really do anything because it has 1 health, right? So that's pretty interesting. I don't think I'd play it. Next up we have Keyway Incantation. This is a 2 mana draw card. Empower 4, draw 4 cards instead. So for 6 mana you can draw 4. I can get with that card. For sure. I wouldn't play this in an aggro deck though. Well, I mean, maybe it would. Like in some situations, like if you're an aggro deck and you're late game and you run into these late game situations and you have 6 mana to spend, you could possibly play this card. Yeah, I mean, it's decent. It's a decent draw option out of the many draw options that Magic already has. Cool. Next up, we have Unannounced Arrival. This is our 3 mana pick 1 spell. Summon a random 4 mana creature. Deal 1 damage to each creature. Oh. That's not bad, especially if you high roll, right? You can high roll into a strong 4 mana creature. But if you get understated creature, maybe it's not good, but I don't know. I think it's an interesting card. Like, definitely gives more opportunity to high roll than opportunity to low roll. So, yeah, it's just when it's random creatures, there are just so many creatures to pick from, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I probably wouldn't run this in a deck. Okay, next up we have Crackling Bolt. This is our 3 mana spell. Deal 3 damage to a creature. Empower 2, deal 8 damage instead. Wow, 5 mana, deal 8 damage. Yeah, that's a pretty nice card. 3 damage for 3 mana though isn't too nice. So you'd probably be playing this for the Empower effect, but it's a decent removal option for sure. Cool. Moving on, we have Enthusiastic Fireslinger. Okay, this is a 4 mana 3/5 Mystic with Echo. Ability, deal 1 damage to an enemy character, then 1 more to a random enemy character. Okay, cool. So, this card is actually pretty good. 4 mana 3/5 is a decent stat line. It leaves a little bit more to be desired, but because the fact it has 5 health means its survivability is above average. I'm interested to see what the Echo character does, or the Echo card does, but for the most part, I think this is actually a pretty decent card. Might be worth experimenting, but it's also kind of slow because it has an ability, right? So you have to like play it, wait a turn, then play the ability, which is kind of a liability, even though it has 5 health. The 5 health definitely helps though. Cool. Next up, we have Crystal Tech Scholar. This is a 4 mana 1/1 Mystic. Echo. Unlock a mana lock. Empower 2. Also draw a card. Okay, so this is a ramp card. 4 mana 1/1 is obviously understated. You unlock a mana lock, which is great. If you play this at 4 mana, you pretty much get to 5.5 because the Roar unlocks the 5th mana lock, and the next turn you get to 5.5. So Bag of Tricks, you can probably play like a 6 mana creature. If you play this on 3 with a Bag of Tricks, you can ramp all the way to 5 next turn. So that's pretty nice. Echo, I hope the Echo card does something where it also unlocks a mana lock, because that would also be kind of cool. But then it would, yeah. And the Empower effect is interesting too, because you get to draw a card. But I don't know, a 6 mana, unlock a mana lock for a 1/1 and draw a card does not seem very appetizing to me. Yeah, I don't know. We might be missing the thing with 4 mana here. I think the sweet spot for ramp cards is like 3 to 5 mana, so it's in the middle for sure, but I don't know. This stat line just makes me want to throw up. Cool. Moving on. We have Hawkish Sculpture. This is our 3 mana, can attack, 3/2. At the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to the strongest enemy creature. Okay, that's interesting. It's another sculpture that does damage at the end of a turn. It can attack, and it doesn't have frontline like the other one, but I mean, can provide a source of damage, which is interesting. I'm leaning towards thinking this card is mediocre though because of the stat line, and yeah, it's the effect isn't very impactful really, because it also can't attack, so it can't do damage that way. It can only do damage like via its effect, which is kind of a letdown. Cool. Moving on to our next rare, we have Unbound Flames. This is a 5 mana spell. Deal 5 damage, empower 2, deal 5 damage to each creature. Okay, cool. So it's basically a Worm Breath in its unempowered form, and its empowered form is an Inferno. I think it's actually a pretty flexible card. Maybe you run this instead of running Inferno? Because then, like, if in cases where you don't need to deal the AoE, you can just deal like burst damage, right? So that's interesting thing. Oh wait, no, but you're dealing 5 damage to each creature, so that's like your own creatures too. I don't know. I think that makes it worse then. I don't think I'd run this card. Yeah, I wouldn't run this card unless it's some sort of like dedicated spell deck. Cool. Next up, we have Museum Infusion. This is a 5 mana spell. Summon 2 3/3 Haunted Armors. Empower 1. Summon 4 Haunted Armors instead. Wow. Wow. Okay. So 5 mana 6/6 that can attack with Frontline, but it turns into a 6 mana 12/12 that can attack with Frontline. That's interesting. The only sad thing is these Haunted Armors can't attack, so you can't really do any additional damage. They're just like there for decoration, essentially. But they are there to suck up the damage that your opponent's creatures want to deal. So, I mean, it's definitely a decent option for sure. Cool. Next up, our last rare is Pyromancy Mentor. This is an 8 mana 1/9 mystic. Wow. After an enemy creature takes damage, give 2 strength to your weakest creature. Roar, deal 1 damage to each enemy. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. So you deal 1 damage to each enemy, depending on the amount of enemies you deal. This thing gets strength, or your weakest creature gets strength. I think that's okay. It's just 8 mana. Like, I don't like 8 mana cards. They have to be extremely broken to be able to play 8 mana cards, and I don't think this card fits that criteria. But I mean, I could be wrong. This could be like insane value. I just think it's just too slow. Like 8 mana is just not. I would kill my. Figuratively speaking, I think I would just like, bang my head on the table. If I drew this card on turn 1, it just feels bad. So that's how I feel. Moving on to our epics. Cool. So moving on to our epics, we have Pyre Shaper. This is a 2 mana 2/2 mystic with Empower 4. Deal 2 damage to each other creature. Wow. Okay, so it's a 2 mana 2/2. Understated for sure, but I mean, if you run the Empower effect, you get to have a nice AoE effect, so maybe that's good. It seems kind of understated though. I don't know if I can get behind this card. Cool. Next up, we have Immaterialize. This is a 2 mana spell. Divide the strength, health, and mana cost of a friendly creature in half. Add a copy of it in your hand. Oh. This card is trouble. Yeah, this card is trouble. You play this card on a card where you don't care about the stats and you really just want the effect. And you basically make a copy of it. So like, I don't know, Warp Engineer, Portal Wrangler, Archimea, you pick like any of those cards and essentially Immaterialize copies them, and then you can use their effects, right? At either a discounted mana cost or something else, right? So that's actually very interesting. This has OTK combo written all over it for sure. We'll see who comes up with the OTK combo, but I'm definitely thinking there's there's a meme waiting to happen with this card. So we'll see where that takes us. But yeah, Immaterialize, definitely something to watch out for. Cool. Spell Slinging Cool's Teacher. I definitely pronounced that wrong. Spell Slinging Cool's. Nope. Spell Slinging Session. Nope. Spell Slinging Cool. Nope. This card. Cool. Awesome. So we're at this card right now. It's a 1 mana 1/1 Mystic. The school teacher, after you summon a creature with 1 health, deal 2 damage to your opponent's god. Huh. Summon a creature with 1 health, deal 2 damage to your opponent's god. Okay. Aggro magic. This card just screams aggro magic, right? Like when you think of the carpet, when you think of the Shadow Scryer, when you think of what else? Demetrios, Spell Singing Cool Teacher, another copy of that. Combine that with like Frumentary Researcher, because they're all mystics and you have a deck, like an aggro mystic deck, which is pretty interesting. And then you can run that Aether card with Ward, right? So yeah, that's something to consider. Definitely watch out for aggro magic next time, or once release hits, because I feel like there's some testing to be done with that archetype. But yeah, aggro minion magic, I should be more specific, because the spell magic is also a thing. But yeah, something to watch out for. All right, so moving on to our legendaries, we have Alistrina, Prime Refractor. This is our first legendary. It's a 4 mana 1/5 Mystic. Roar. Reduce the mana cost of cards in your hand by 1. Oh. Empower 3. Do the same for your... Oh. Yeah, this card is good. I'm always going to like say cards that discount other cards are pretty good. This is pretty good. And if you're playing like, I don't know, like you play a ramp deck, you do this for your deck. Oh my goodness. You can play Polyhymnia 4 turns earlier. Are you kidding me? Because it goes from 9 mana to 8 mana, right? And that's 4 turns. But anyways, yeah, this is a very good card. I think we, yeah. This card and Garen, I think, are my top contenders for like best cards in the set right now. But we'll see. We haven't even gone through everything yet, right? So keep that in mind. Anyways, next up, we have Academy of Mystic Arts. This is a 6 mana 5/8 structure. Backline, can't attack. After you summon a creature with 1 health, reduce by 1 the cost of the highest mana cost spell in your hand. Oh. Backline can attack. Okay, so backline can attack. It's a structure, so there's synergy with Architect, right? Aggravated Architect. Backline means that it's pretty safe. Like the survivability is pretty good too. 8 health. After you summon a creature with 1 health, reduce by 1 the cost of the highest mana cost spell in your hand. Okay. Now what's the craziest highest mana cost spell that we can play from Magic? Magic Unburdened? I don't know. If you know what kind of spell this card, the Academy of Mystic Arts, can like discount, let me know, because there's definitely something there too. That's really good. I mean, this is definitely like a meme card, I think. And it's one of those cards where you have to build a deck around it, right? So you need to have hella creatures with 1 health. Yeah, and then you need to have a mana cost spell that's worth discounting to get those discounts on. But yeah, this could be definitely a very good card depending on how you build the deck. Oh man, so many options. Yeah. I think Alistrina is better, but this is definitely a card where you build this card as a win condition or something, build a deck around it. So definitely interested to see how people incorporate this card. Cool. And last but not least, we have Nithos, Mage Weaver. Ability, unlock a mana lock for this turn, then refresh 1 mana. And power 2, deal 2 damage to the weakest enemy creature. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, okay. This card can be good as long as it stays alive. The survivability of this card is pretty bad, though, if I had to be like objective about it. Because it's a 1 mana 1/2, right? It doesn't have ward, it doesn't have protected, so you play this card and essentially you hope your opponent doesn't have an answer. Yeah. It could be good, but my gut says no on this. But maybe if you can find a way to, maybe you pair it with like a Vow of Learning or an Ancient Text, like that could be okay. It's definitely a card to consider for tempo magic. That's for sure. Because it presents a threat. And if you don't deal with the threat, you can, if your opponent doesn't deal with the threat, your opponent can, or you can benefit a lot out of this card. So that's my thing. If you play this card, you probably have to run some sort of protection so that you can ensure that you can get the ability off and have that payout. Cool. Okay, cool, y'all. So that was it for our magic section for all the Mortal Judgment cards. Closing thoughts. I definitely think Alistrina is a card worth considering. Is a top runner for like one of the best cards in the set. Spell Singing School Teacher is also pretty sick, especially when you think about all the creatures that have Echo. Oh yeah, that's right. There we go. Echo works with this card and this card, and that could be really good. And this card also kind of synergizes with Echo effects because it gives you 1 additional mana. So I could definitely see these things getting fit in. It's honestly just a matter of how they fit in together. You know what I mean? Like that's a deck design that that's a deck design that has to go through a lot of testing, I feel. But anyways, yeah, that's my take on the Magic class. I think aggro, mystic synergy, or aggro magic with like the mystic synergies could be a thing with Frumentary Researcher. Ramp Magic also got a new toy in Alistrina Prime Refractor. I think that's also a card that worth considering. Nithos is also pretty good for tempo magic. Well, actually all, but it's just the survivability is a question mark for me. And Academy of Mystic Arts will definitely spawn some decks that want to try to abuse Echo and the other mystics involved, right? So super interesting stuff, but definitely lots of testing to be done with the Magic class for Mortal Judgment. So I'm excited to see if these archetypes hold, because they seem to have the gas, but I'm not too sure if they like really have the gas, but we'll see. Right now, top cards are Alistrina and from the war set, Garen. Yeah. This card is pretty good too. Spell Singing School Teacher. And maybe... Alright. I'm just going to say it. Hot take, 20-sided Mace might also be very good. But yeah, okay, cool. That was a little bit extra than what I was supposed to say, but thank y'all for tuning in. If you liked the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and then if I miss anything or if you found anything crazy, feel free to share it in the comments below. Oh, I forgot to mention Immaterialize too. That card is also worth experimenting with. But anyways, cool. Thank y'all again for tuning in. Hope y'all have a blessed day and take care. See you next video. Peace, y'all.